Welcome back to Culture Week for part 2, where we discuss the TV shows, movies, podcasts, and books that we're reading that we really enjoy that inspire us in our cultural journey.
It's a book called Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. After she lost her mom, she says that it's almost like she's trying to prove that she's still holding on to her Korean side, which really, I don't know, it struck me in a sense that I never thought about it for other people with Korean heritage to be struggling in that way. Because Koreanness is like the basic for me that all my life, I've been trying to get away from it. When for them, that's what they're trying to learn, trying to connect, have to prove that it's their connection. For me, that was really learning point that, oh, this is what's different for people like me from people like Korean Americans who have that settings and they're just the identity is the one that's really fluid. I think it's also really a good book to read if anyone lost their parent. I think it's really interesting point for the author to be talking about this and explaining. I think it's almost like this book is for her to heal. It's a really great book.
No, I'm excited to read it because I lost my dad in 3 years, and it's almost like you're trying to stay connected, but you're not trying to dwell. You're also not trying to forget either. It's a weird conundrum that you just live with for the rest of your life of some things will make you cry, some things will make you laugh, some things will make you mad, some things will make you happy. It's just a weird, and especially when you can't ask questions anymore, why? And especially for her, was she young when her mom passed?
I think she's not too young, but at least my age. So I considered it young, I think.
At your guys' age and even mine, you're still coming into knowing your parent as a person,
right?
And not this omnipotent being that knows everything that you have to listen to and all this stuff. It's like they're just a human. They've made mistakes. They've made great successes. They've been good. They've been bad. They've been ugly. Whatever it is, it's a hard transition to make. And when you can't make that with that person in person, it really complicates feelings. But that sounds like a really good book.
Yeah, and also the way she writes, every time she starts a page or a different chapter, she has these points that she really hooks the reader in a very emotional way because the first page I was done. I was like, I cannot read this without crying. I think she just starts the book by I cry every time I go in H Mart. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm not ready for this.
I'm gonna cry.
No. I didn't know it was about her mom. So I just read it because I just thought it's about cultural identity, about being Korean American. But it's way more than that. I was in the first page, I was I did not expect this at all.
I mean, it definitely connects back, I think, of the Jan and Alita Assman that they talk about cultural memory and being tied to 3 generations or 80 years. And how important a person is in that.
It's a weird thing because I never lost a parent, but for me to read this and think and connect with the author in a very emotional way, I think she's really talented writer.
I think it's this common feeling as well of you don't know what you're missing or what you'll miss until you lose something. And I think it's still interesting that you do get that perspective, even if you haven't lost anyone, that there are a lot of things that you didn't think that you'd think about, but thanks to this book you actually do, that there are so many small things, tiny things that you'll miss and you don't really think about it. And I think it helps treasure those moments as well.
What a gift to learn how not to take it for granted in the moment.
Yes.
I think I also feel when I'm reading this book, I feel like she's way younger than me when I'm reading it, because of the connection level to the Korean culture. Because if I experienced this, I wouldn't feel lost in my Korean culture. But for her to be lost in general by losing her parents, she's also struggling with the cultural identity. I can't even imagine being lost in that way. When I'm reading this book, she's like a little kid.
Yeah.
Do you think, sorry, Shaylee,
the conversation
you go.
we've had about Korean Americans or Koreans living outside Korea, not being Korean enough.
Yeah, I think that kind of feeling is what really drives her to connect with Korean culture so much. And for me to feel bad, because even though I feel lost in my identity, I still had experience living in Korea when I was younger, and I still have a lot of connection in family. But for her, it was just her mom that I think she really doesn't have any other way than what she's doing, like going to H Mart and eating Korean food. I think it really makes me realize, like I said, how lucky I am to just have this little bit of connection that I just have naturally, when for people like her, it's not the same.
Yeah, I think that's why it's so hard, that her connection to Korea or being Korean was her mother, was her family. So if that is lost, you kind of do feel lost as well. Like for me as well, like my Turkish identity or heritage comes from my family, my parents. So if that's severed in some way, then I'd feel very lost as well.
Right.
Maybe wouldn't feel as Turkish as I would next to them or talking to them or just being with them.
Yeah, but I think I saw an article that said this book is becoming a movie, so I'm really excited for that. I saw like an ad for casting, so I'm not sure when it's coming out or if it's actually gonna come out, but hopefully it's a good cast and works out well, because I mean, I'm loving the book. So
where was she from in the United States?
I'm not sure, actually.
I would assume like the West Coast. It's only because I went to my first H Mart in Seattle this last month. It was
biased.
Well, H Mart is in quite a lot of places. H Mart is a big, because it's also in Michigan and in other. But yeah, it's a good book. I definitely recommend. Just be ready to cry. Have a tissue with you or something. Because it is very emotional.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I mean, I cry a lot, but
I mean, yes, to be fair, you cry quite easily. So
yeah, but
can't really take you as a measure.
This book, anything. I guarantee. At least a bit, at least once.
It's like it'll melt your cold heart.
I know. If you don't cry, something's wrong with you. That's what it is. Yeah. Definitely. You have to cry. With this book, you have to cry.
So excited to read it, but it's one of those that's going to be hard to read because of the parent angle. But I think it's so interesting for you to read it as a cultural angle is so interesting.
I think both of our perspective after reading the book might be different, like different connection for sure.
Sure, yeah.
But both emotional. I guarantee. I guarantee.
I'll send you a picture and just go, why did you do
Shaylee? Podcast from you?
Oh, I have so many podcasts. I don't even know.
Of course.
Which one would you like?
One.
Ooh. I mean, we had some like dark and emotional ones.
Four.
Four?
Not four.
Never exactly happy. Okay, I'll preface.
But less dark, maybe.
I have Missing and Murdered, which is about First Nations and in Canada. Someplace Underneath, focused on women and children's health. Or The Missionary. Not exactly happy, but maybe more eye-catching. And there is a documentary going to come out about it.
Oh, really?
Okay, that one?
You just said that it was going to be lighter and you kept talking about murder.
I know. As soon as you said it, I was like, ooh. Shaylee. We should have known.
My shit is just
Shaylee
murder.
Without Murder podcast, just not Shaylee. No.
Not Shaylee.
Yeah, not that surprising. But this really concludes that we're not really happy people.
Yeah.
We are not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not happy
Troubled
because the
people.
world is not happy.
Okay, my recommendation is The Missionary by I Heart True Crime, and it's a podcast. I was turned on to it by a friend who knows somebody that was interviewed for the podcast, who had experienced what was going on, was a part of it basically, and kind of was a whistleblower in it. But it follows the story of a woman named Renee Bach, who was a very young missionary. She left right out of high school to go to Uganda to start a malnutrition program. And Uganda is a very popular choice amongst evangelical Christians in the United States to go, quote unquote, help, even though, like they have this like area that is just missionary centric. And coming from a Christian background, having been pushed, in certain ways to do mission trips and those kind of things, not as much being raised Catholic versus say, other denominations. It was interesting to see that white savior kind of moment and what can come from that, of the disrespect or just the lack of wanting to understand another culture and thinking it needs to be like yours. And, but also coming from a place of wanting to help. But is that place of wanting to help also because you want recognition? And so she opened a malnutrition clinic in Uganda to feed, obviously children. And slowly but surely it turned into this kind of semi-hospital-ish building where they were doing surgeries, and she denies that, but there's nurses that were there that were going thinking this is a good place to go, that it has, the right stuff to actually be helping and be serving as a rural hospital and making a difference. And in actuality, it's very dangerous, and there's people dying, and there's suspected children's deaths, and just very dangerous to people, to thinking that like, oh, I can use you for my own gain because this is what I'm being told to do. And unfortunately, it's just kind of a messed up way to act out your faith. Nobody's asking for you to come and to fix their culture, fix their country, fix them as a people. It's just a very dangerous thing. And, having grown up in America, it's a very big part of us. I think Sarah can attest that, growing up Christian, it's of Europe too. I know people that have gone on missions. I know people that have gone and built wells or built a school or whatever it is. They talk about it in the podcast where it's like the same school building just keeps getting rebuilt because they don't actually need it, but somebody needs to come and act it out. It's just a lesson, I think, in yes, you can feel like you're doing the right thing and that you're needed, but you actually have to take a step back and ask yourself and ask people and have a conversation of, is this actually what you're wanting? I think growing up in America where, we're the world police or we're the world savior or whatever we think we are, having to take a step back and realize where you are needed and where you are not, and where you are welcome and where you are not, is very different from what we've been told. And it's a lesson I continue to learn, as a person that wants to study cultures and do projects that lead to successful communities, making sure that I am the right person, that I'm not stepping on somebody's toes and stepping in where it's not necessary. So the Missionary, I think it's HBO is doing the documentary series that'll come up. But that was also quite a while ago that it was being produced and such.
Yeah, but I don't think before I heard this podcast, I don't think I've ever thought about mission trips might be problematic. Because it's just like you said, Shaylee, it's just part of being Christian. You go through mission trips in your life at least once. It's an experience. It's what you think you should do. But there is always better way to share your blessings. And like you could just donate. You could just learn about other cultures, what they're going through, and help in different ways. Because like habitat projects, like you said, sometimes they're really not needed. Really, you just have to figure out, is it my perspective of them needing help, or is it them really asking for help? Because sometimes we think, oh, these third world countries are worse than us, so we need to fix it in a way that we think is helpful.
I would wonder, Sarah, like for you, coming from such a strong faith, for me, I always say I'm a recovering Catholic. It's like, I'm not mad about somebody going to help, doing some sort of work that, whether it's helping clean up after a hurricane or helping in a drought or whatever it is, doing good stuff, providing funding so that, young entrepreneurs can get off the ground. It's when there's an underlying cause of why you're doing it, whether that is spreading faith, whether that is spreading propaganda about a certain country, whatever it is. That's where I have an issue of, no, we do this because we want them to be this. So we want them to be Christian. We want them to be whatever. We want them to be different in some way. So we'll provide help to get them to get to that point. And that's where I have a really hard time with it. And I would wonder, coming from your studies now with like cultural heritage and sustainability, I know it changed my outlook on things. How has it changed yours?
Well, I mean, missionaries, from my perspective as a Christian, is important in a sense that Christian faith, I think, is important to share. But mostly what I have a problem with some of the missionaries is that they think they have to force their faith to people. But from what I learned in my life, from the church that I went through, from my parents and family, is that you always share. And it all depends on the other person that whether they're going to receive what you shared or not. But some of these missionaries, it's really, I'll help you if you convert, which is very problematic. For me, I don't have much experience in mission trips in general. From what I've seen is that some of the missionaries that we help through church, I think the church in Michigan, like the one that my brother goes, help missionaries in Cambodia. And they have children that are living in the church because family asked for their help. So in that sense, I think it's important. My family, usually what we've always done, rather than we go to these mission trips, we always do donations. I mean, the term itself is really, you never know if what they mean. Because mission trip can mean anything when you're talking to Christians. So it's really a hard thing to define. Yeah.
If you look at the history of like missionaries, it's like you were going to like be a preacher basically and go into places that hadn't heard about Christianity. And it was a very dangerous thing. It was kind of like being a monk, like you're going out being a religious person, and now it's oddly commercialized where it's like if you're going to live as a, and attract somebody through your action, that's great. Like I have met people who I think are so, they live out whatever it's the gospel, whatever it is, they live it out in such a beautifully authentic way that is not, I guess, pushy. And that is where it's like, great, do that.
Right. Yeah.
But
you don't have to force other people for it. Yeah.
Just a weird colonial, mindset of forcing. And so I'm really interested to see, when the documentary does come out from this podcast. I know that the podcast itself has like hit some communities, not hard, but like just made them reevaluate. And I hope that continues to happen of you can be, in this case, Christian and share without screaming it. And in the case of Renee Bach is like, she got pretty well known in her community, her circle for what she was doing, and she just needed more. And it just was very dangerous. So I'm really interested because I think she was being sued by, oh gosh, it was maybe the country of Kenya, the country of Uganda, like multiple,
like a big,
big deal. Like she had to run home. She had to run back to.
I mean, well deserved, I'd say.
Exactly.
That's
Get
really,
on out. Girl. Like, I get that you might have the best of intentions, but that doesn't mean that you're not ignorant.
I don't think even her intention was good. Because sometimes I think the difficult thing about missionaries now is that before it used to be more of a scholar thing. So you study, go through these steps, and you can do mission work when you have these right to do so. But now a lot of churches are really desperate to do mission work that even because in Michigan, I had a friend who went to this other American church that she was a Chinese student. She didn't really care for religion, and she got curious because obviously I talk a lot about church, and she got curious and she went to this church. And then she came to me and told me that the missionaries, apparently there were missionaries that were going around the campus and targeting international students, obviously because they don't know much about it. And they're just driving around and then just stopping and asking, like giving them help and all those things. And it's very overwhelming help that they have no other way. Yeah, they have no other way to say no. And it's very difficult thing. And my friend said they went to this church and they were really overwhelmed by what they were doing and what they were saying. And they were saying really, because usually when you bring your friend to a church, you just go with really basic things. This is what we do. This is what we believe. And the pastor is talking about this. This is what it is. And let's just have fun. Let's eat food and just kind of that kind of community thing that what we do. But apparently this church was really forcing that ideas of Christianity in the most dramatic way possible. So they're going with hell, heaven, all these really overwhelming concepts that can be really emotional concepts as well. That obviously for my friend who doesn't even understand the religion itself, that she was just curious, and she was just like, I don't think I'll ever go to church because this is just too much. She didn't really explain much to me, but sometimes these churches, because the missionaries apparently are like also students, so these churches sometimes are very desperate to do mission work, and they let these kids who are barely adults to do these without any education, without anything in training. And these churches obviously only think about one thing, bringing more people. Clearly, bringing more people doesn't mean they're going to believe more. It's just that more people that have no idea what it is. But it's much needed conversation for Christians to have.
But it's so funny because, like, I think a lot of universities have like Christian or faith houses, basically. I have a friend whose husband runs one here at university, and I never remember them being really pushy. Like, they were just always, it's so hard to understand the different denominations, especially in the United States. It's doing it's an evangelical, which means that you're going out and evangelizing. You're going out to get more people and being very proactive in that way. Where, like, growing up Catholic, nah.
Yeah, it's more of our thing, isn't it?
Yeah, like you're born into it. Or you want to convert, or you got married to somebody that's Catholic.
But never in this way, which is why I was so shocked and scared for her, because
for sure.
Because these people were driving around the campus and asking, "Oh, do you need a ride?" and just randomly. And I don't know, it troubled me because, like, also, if anyone else, like, do not get in a car with a stranger.
Yes.
I was like, why?
That's what I was thinking about.
I know. I was like, what is
getting
happening?
in?
Order an Uber? I don't think so. This is not Christian Uber. Get out.
Thank God my friend didn't get in the car.
This might be a dumb question setup.
Yes.
But being a Muslim, being an Islam, is there that kind of missionary mindset? No.
That's why I'm mostly listening, because it's not really common culture for us to go around. Like, I think it's such a Christian thing that go around getting people to be Christian. I don't know, but because it's like a thing in like the central station as well. There are always people standing there, giving out pamphlets. Absolutely. And I'm like,
just yelling.
People haven't been able to make the Christian. I don't think your pamphlet is going to succeed at all.
No.
It's like, do you want to go to hell? I'm like,
so ironic because
I know they use fear tactics.
Yeah, for sure. Very culty tactics, that love bombing.
Very scary.
You love Jesus. I'm like, dude,
why not? Great look. But I would
wonder that they do as missionaries. I think I thought of during our Ramadan month, where we do every year we do a bunch of donations. We help people as much as we can during the entire month. And I think, but it doesn't have Islam as it's like, of course it does, but it's not about preaching about the religion, and it's just about helping as many people as you can. And usually what my dad does is like asking people within like municipalities and stuff in Turkey of like, okay, where are the areas, who are the families that need the most help? And then we will help them as much as we can, of giving food, giving clothes to children, shoes, whatever they need. Also because, like you said, Sarah, like, I mean, talk about the religion if people actually want to hear it. Like me getting pamphlets every time I go, like, I'm just like, I'm not even taking it. This is why
you should just take it. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. But what I don't like is those Christians that have these big signs that God is coming and you're going to hell if you don't believe God. That's the worst kind of missionary work. Yeah, because like in my mind, I'm just like, if anyone says that to me, I'm gone. I'm never interacting with them. But in their mind, it's like, oh, they're gonna get so scared, they're gonna talk to me about God.
Were you talking about Westboro Baptist Church? Like the signs that are like, you're going to hell. They say very mean words about. They say like gay slurs, and they're the crazy people that go and picket. Yeah.
No, but it's a thing in Korea as well, but not slurs, but you're going to hell pickets or it's a common thing in Korea sometimes.
In cities like New York and stuff. My favorite one was in a rural town in South Dakota where the Catholics were having a city dance. And it wasn't even just the Catholics, it was the city. It had like 500 people. They will know exactly who I'm talking about if someone listens from there. But the other prevalent denomination was Baptist, and they were yelling about how dancing was for the devil, basically. And it was just like, what?
We're all going to hell.
That's crazy.
Like, keep walking. But I'm like, I have so many questions.
You're like, what?
Where's that thought even coming from?
It's just
has existed for such a long time,
and it's a controlling thing. But yeah, Westboro Baptist Church, those are the people that you see that go to military funerals. I've learned about them because, say, I'm coming from Laramie Pride, which is, this is a crazy thing to be in existence in Laramie at some point because we had the death of Matthew Shepard. And that's the first time they showed up in our communities to protest and say that he deserved to die. And it was just this horrible, I think, a real lesson for a lot of people that, oh, this can go terribly fundamentalist and very, very destructive. And they've showed up again and again. And
yeah, I think it's this thought of that, like, everyone should be interested in Christianity enough to take it or anything like that, or to think that's the only religion there is or something, that people will be like, oh, of course we'll take it.
Yeah. When I was being trained as an English teacher, they made sure to remind us, because like the school that I taught in had a lot of Saudi students, and they were reminding us that like they are going to ask you why there are so many homeless people on the street, because where they're coming from and within their culture, it's not as prevalent. It's just not what they see. It really just was like, no, where are their families? They would always ask, where are their families? And it was such a lesson in, just because we say we're Christian, just because we say we're this or like we're faithful or whatever, that we're doing the work, doesn't mean we're actually doing the work. And it provides perspective on other religions and how they do it and how they do it well. But it's the dangers of believing so hard that you are right and that others are wrong. That is so, so destructive. And I think it's a lesson to just be cognizant of other people in this world. And
yes, definitely.
That, whether it's any of our suggestions, and our the things that we've been reading or listening to, it's just a matter of softening yourself to other people and their perspective.
Thank you for listening to Culture Weight. Please follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.